"Shut up, you illiterate woman. This isn't a place for people like you." The words cut through the room like a whip, leaving only the echo of shame. And there, between muffled laughter and looks of disdain, Miranda Ramos felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. Once a teacher in Brazil, she now scrubbed the cold floors of a wealthy New York company, trying to survive in silence. No one knew her past, the secret she carried, the sharp mind hidden behind a blue uniform. They only saw the cleaner and ignored the woman. But destiny has a strange way of turning humiliation into a stage. And that morning, without knowing it, Miranda was about to be tested in a way that would change everything. Because sometimes, God uses contempt to deliver a lesson. Subscribe to Fire Story, where every story begins with humiliation and ends with redemption. The hallway shone like a mirror. Each step Miranda Ramos took reflected a lifetime of silence. The cold light from the ceiling fixtures made the marble floor look like a frozen lake, beautiful but merciless. The squeak of her cleaning cart echoed through the luxurious emptiness of Brighton Innovations. Inside that glass tower, time didn't smell like coffee, it smelled like power. And she was just the cloth that erased everyone else's footprints. Her blue uniform, frayed at the elbows, stood out against the polished gray of the place. Even invisible, Miranda noticed everything. The whispered conversations, the restrained laughter, the language of looks that passed right through her as if she didn't exist. She arranged the chairs one by one, like someone preparing an altar she'd never be invited to pray at. Outside, New York roared in hurry and fortune. Inside, only the distant hum of the air conditioning. Then, the automatic door slid open, and the air shifted. A woody perfume drifted in, followed by the sharp sound of leather shoes and a voice that made everyone bow slightly. Mark Dalton, the millionaire heir. Young, handsome, owner of an almost elegant kind of arrogance. The kind of confidence only people who have never fallen can carry. Miranda lowered her gaze, but she didn't need to look to feel the weight of his presence. The executives took their seats. Soft laughter. Keyboard clicks. The faint clink of a gold pen. The smell of expensive coffee mixed with disinfectant, a cruel irony. She bent down to pick up some papers that had fallen. The sound of the sheets sliding across the floor was enough to draw too much attention. Dalton stopped mid-sentence, turned, and without even looking, struck. "Shut up, you illiterate woman. This isn't a place for people like you." The words fell heavy, like stones dropped into a silent lake. The water, or rather, the air, froze. No one breathed. The translator pretended to shuffle notes. A female executive fake coughed. Humiliation hung there, visible, thick, and cruel. Miranda froze. Her soul shrank. Her face burned. The urge to disappear was almost physical. But she only gathered the papers, one by one, as if collecting pieces of her own dignity. The sound of folding paper echoed like shame itself. Yet behind her lowered eyes, something stirred, a pulse, a secret. A flash of the brilliance she had tried to bury, the sharp mind that once taught chemistry and linguistics. The thrill of solving the impossible. Without knowing, that arrogant millionaire had just lit the fuse of his own lesson. Dalton resumed his speech, confident. Behind him, a colorful slide glowed with numbers, formulas, and arrows. As Miranda quietly wiped the edge of the conference table, she noticed, right there, in the middle of the equation, an inversion. Tiny, but fatal. Like spotting a crack in an expensive glass, almost invisible, but inevitable. She blinked. Looked again. Yes, it was wrong. A detail that could cost millions. Her heart pounded. "Stay quiet," she whispered to herself. But the thought grew louder than her caution. The contrast was absurd, a millionaire bragging about efficiency while making a rookie mistake, and a silent janitor holding the secret that could save them all. Miranda took a deep breath. The floor gleamed too much. Her hands trembled. Her mind raced, translating the formula into different languages, an automatic reflex of the teacher still living beneath that apron. The past flashed before her eyes, the chalkboard, the smiling students, the small lab, all flooding back, mixed with pain, loss, and escape. Then, crash. A glass hit the floor. The sound cut through the air like lightning. Miranda knelt instinctively. The spilled water reflected her face in shards, fragmented, multiplied. Symbolic. She was in pieces, yet still whole. When she rose, her eyes met the formula again. And something changed. Fear began to dissolve. Courage took its place. Humiliation became momentum. Her heart pounded like a drum. She breathed deeply. This was the moment. Speak now, or stay silent forever. Excuse me. Her voice came out soft, but strong enough to stop the millionaire mid-sentence. He turned, annoyed. What now? Miranda looked at the screen, then back at him. There's a mistake in your formula. The sentence sliced through the air like a blade. Laughter erupted, one person first, then another, until the whole room was laughing. But Miranda didn't blink. And I can prove it. The silence that followed didn't feel human. Dalton crossed his arms, looking down on her like someone crushing an insect. Oh really? And in what language do you plan to teach us that, Mrs.? What was it again? She lifted her chin. Her voice was low, but firm enough to turn heads. In whichever language you prefer. The words hung in the air. Dense. Vibrant. Dalton's smirk died in his throat. The noon light from the glass windows fell across her face, and for a moment, everyone saw something different. Not a cleaner. Someone who knew. Someone with a secret that could change everything. Dalton tried to regain control, but something about Miranda unsettled him. She wasn't defiant, just real. So real that his false sense of power began to crack. The executives glanced between them, caught between fear and fascination. The air thickened, as if the room itself sensed it was about to witness something extraordinary. And there, in front of the glowing screen, between the brilliance of the formula and the weight of silence, the story began to change, though no one realized it yet. The clock struck 10 sharp. The projector flickered blue, casting cold reflections on the glass walls. Dalton gestured confidently as he presented the new chemical compound that, according to him, would revolutionize the market. His speech was full of jargon, and the foreign investors nodded politely, half of them barely understanding his technical English. Miranda stood quietly in the corner, her heart still pounding from the earlier humiliation. But now, something stronger than shame pulsed inside her, the need to tell the truth. It was as if the error on the screen was calling her name, whispering, "Speak." She tried to ignore it, but the truth burned in her chest. The next slide came up, filled with chemical formulas. Dalton smiled proudly, as if unveiling a masterpiece. But Miranda saw the opposite, disaster waiting to happen. The mistake was subtle, a flipped symbol, a wrong proportion, but enough to destroy the project and cause millions in losses. She swallowed hard. The voices faded. All she could hear now was her own thought. If I speak, they'll laugh. But if I stay silent, they'll lose everything. The cleaner looked around. The translator was whispering to a Japanese investor, struggling to find words he didn't understand. Dalton kept talking, confident, unaware his own arrogance was about to collapse. Then, Miranda stepped forward. The white lights gleamed on the floor, reflecting on her face. "Excuse me," she said, not asking permission, but claiming space. The translator stopped. Dalton turned, exasperated. "You again." The words dripped with sarcasm. But before he could go on, Miranda pointed at the screen. "It's wrong." The words echoed through the room like a muffled gunshot. The silence that followed was almost tangible. Dalton blinked, disbelieving, then gave a short, mocking laugh. "You think you understand this?" She didn't answer. She just held his gaze. The chief engineer frowned, intrigued. "What exactly is wrong?" Miranda stepped forward without hesitation. The glow of the projector cast the formulas across her face. She lifted a finger and pointed. "Here." The translator hurried to smooth things over, She's saying there's a small mathematical error. Dalton cut him off impatiently. A cleaner is correcting a multi-million-dollar formula? Is that it? His laugh rippled through the room, but no one dared to join him for long. There was something in her calm tone that disarmed mockery itself. Miranda took a slow breath, and the words came like a wave that had been held back for years. The symbol is inverted. That changes the polarity of the bond and compromises the compound's stability. Dalton blinked, confused. The chief engineer, however, widened his eyes. Miranda went on, her voice gaining texture, strength, authority. "And if you'll allow me," she said, glancing around, "I can explain it in other languages, in case anyone doesn't understand." The translator froze, unsure what to do. Dalton laughed loudly. "Other languages? Oh, please, enlighten us." Then came the unexpected. Miranda began in English, then smoothly repeated the explanation in Spanish. Without pause, she continued in French. The audience murmured. She moved on to German, then Italian, Russian, Mandarin, and finally Arabic. Each phrase came out flawless, perfectly pronounced, rhythmical, almost poetic. Silence. Absolute silence. The hum of the air conditioning was the only sound left alive in the room. Dalton's eyes widened. He couldn't tell if it was a prank or a miracle. The foreign investors, however, began to applaud softly, astonished. The translator, embarrassed, lowered his microphone. The Japanese investor said something, and the translator's shaky voice relayed it. "She's right. And more than that, she explained it better than the technical report itself." Dalton turned pale. His usual confidence began to slip away. Miranda, who minutes ago had been invisible, was now the center of the universe. The light of the projector flickered behind her like a shy halo. Humiliation had turned into a stage. Every second moved in slow motion, and the millionaire's pride dissolved in front of everyone. Dalton tried to recover. "That's impossible. She must have memorized something from an old report." The chief engineer interrupted calmly. "No, sir. She's absolutely right. If we had tested the formula as it was, the results would have collapsed." The words hit like a punch. The millionaire went pale. A murmur spread across the room. Miranda lowered her eyes, not out of fear, but respect. The translator still looked dazed. The investors whispered among themselves in different languages. The atmosphere had changed. It was as if the cold floor of the company was warming for the first time. Dalton, lost for words, brushed his suit as if trying to put his ego back in place. "Who are you?" he asked softly, almost a whisper. Miranda looked up. For a moment, she didn't look like a cleaner at all. She looked like someone from another life. Just someone who still believes knowledge doesn't die, even when the world tries to bury it. A reverent silence settled. The chief engineer approached her, fascinated. "She just saved the project," he murmured. The translator repeated the sentence in English, and the investors began to clap, discreetly, like people applauding a quiet miracle. With every soft clap, Dalton's face lost more color. The mask of power melted beneath the gaze of the woman he had humiliated moments before. Miranda breathed steadily. There was no arrogance in her expression, only peace. Her tearful eyes reflected the blue glow of the screen. In that mix of colors and silence, something new was born, respect. And without knowing it, everyone there was about to witness one of the greatest lessons of their lives. Miranda took a small step back, wiped her hands on her uniform, and returned to the corner of the room. The translator still stammered, searching for words. Dalton remained frozen, in shock. The air was thick, alive, like a held flame. Outside, the city kept its rhythm. Inside, a story had just turned upside down. And no one, absolutely no one, would ever be the same again. The silence lingered. No one spoke, no one moved. The distant hum of the air conditioner was the only surviving sound. Mark Dalton, the millionaire whose voice had once filled the room, was now mute. The screen projected the corrected formula, The blue glow reflected on his face as he stared, unblinking. Miranda, still in the corner, held her cleaning cloth like an anchor. Her body trembled, but her gaze stayed firm. She didn't celebrate, didn't smile, she looked entranced. There was something almost spiritual in the way she stood there, as if, for a moment, God himself had paused time just to restore the dignity that had been stripped from her minutes before. The chief engineer was the first to break the spell. He stood, adjusted his glasses, and looked at Dalton carefully. "Sir, she's right. With that correction, the molecule stabilizes. It's brilliant." The words, "she's right," echoed like quiet thunder. Dalton blinked, searching for an argument that no longer existed. His pride, once solid, was cracking like glass. Miranda, without realizing, had turned embarrassment into a mirror. Each executive saw their own prejudice reflected back at them. The humiliation had changed owners. One of the foreign investors, a gray-haired man with a calm gaze, stood up and said something in Japanese. The translator, voice trembling, translated, "He wants to know who she is." The question hung in the air. Dalton took a deep breath, trying to regain control, and replied with disdain, "No one. Just the cleaner." But the investor frowned and pressed again. "Cleaner? This woman speaks 8 languages and understands molecular chemistry." Silence fell once more, heavier than before. Miranda lowered her gaze. Her hands were sweating. She had never wanted attention, only to pay the rent. The translator, shy but curious, turned to her. "Madam," he asks, "how did you learn all this?" Miranda hesitated. Memories pulsed like old wounds, the smell of chalk, the sound of young laughter, the voice of a husband long gone. She took a deep breath. Her voice came out low, but steady, a confession wrapped in dignity. "I was a teacher. Linguistics and chemistry. In Brazil." A murmur ran through the room. Dalton looked away, uneasy. Miranda continued. "But life changes direction when you least expect it. The secret to survival is to keep walking, even when they take the ground from under you." Dalton leaned back in his chair, his fingers drumming on the metal armrest. The millionaire tried to smile, but his face betrayed discomfort. "Teacher," he repeated, as if the word didn't fit in his reality. Miranda nodded, without arrogance, without bitterness. "I taught for 17 years. Until my husband got sick. I sold everything to take care of him. When he was gone, all that was left was silence, and fear. And fear is what brought me here." Her words floated slowly, each syllable carrying the weight of a lifetime. The room, once a stage for arrogance, had become a confessional. The executives who had once looked past her now watched with quiet respect, some with shame. The translator lowered his mic. The Japanese investor crossed his arms, thoughtful. Miranda breathed steadily, though her hands trembled slightly, a mix of nerves and release. After years swallowing humiliation, there was finally space for her voice. The lesson wasn't about chemistry, and everyone knew it. It was about humanity. About what happens when we underestimate those who carry the world silently on their backs. Dalton, unsure what to do with his own silence, tried to laugh, but the sound died before it left his throat. He stared at Miranda with a mix of disbelief and guilt. Her calmness disarmed him. "And what's a teacher doing here, cleaning floors?" he asked softly, almost regretful. Miranda looked at him with kindness, the kind that hurts. "Because sometimes, Mr. Dalton, a diploma doesn't fit in a pocket. And the world doesn't always reward effort, but it always tests character." The translator swallowed hard and repeated every word. The sentence fell like a verdict. The room was still. Every breath could be heard. The chief engineer stood and, with a discreet gesture, shook Miranda's hand. Dalton watched, motionless. Humiliation now sat beside him in silence. And for the first time, he tasted the metallic flavor of shame. Miranda stepped aside, adjusted her uniform, and quietly wiped the corner of her eye. She didn't cry out of pain, but out of relief. Outside, the wind brushed against the glass walls, as if heaven itself was breathing with her. The Japanese investor spoke again. A woman like her shouldn't be cleaning floors. She should be translating the world. The translator repeated the words, and the phrase hovered over everyone. Miranda smiled faintly, but it was a sad smile, not a proud one. Translating the world, she whispered. The metaphor stung because it was true. She had spent her whole life translating words, pain, humiliation. And now, without realizing it, she was translating a lesson for everyone in that room. Dalton, still motionless, turned his gaze toward the window. His reflection stared back, smaller, paler, human. For the first time, the millionaire saw himself off his pedestal. And without knowing it, that moment would mark the beginning of a slow, deep, and irreversible transformation. The story didn't end there, it was only beginning to rewrite itself. The room remained silent, but now it wasn't a silence of tension, it was one of respect. The air felt lighter, though no one could quite breathe. Dalton sat still, eyes lost somewhere invisible. Miranda's words echoed in his mind like a distant song he couldn't turn off. The man who was used to commanding now found himself small, surrounded by eyes that didn't know whether to pity him or admire him. Miranda, meanwhile, stood tall, her simple uniform contrasting with the greatness of the moment. It was as if power itself had quietly changed owners, without a throne, without applause. Dalton took a deep breath, his throat dry. He searched for words, but the same voice that once filled rooms with authority now betrayed him. I may have been harsh, he murmured, unable to meet her eyes. The translator hesitated, then translated. Miranda didn't answer. Her silence was louder than any response. And slowly, that silence spread through the room like a mirrored wave. Everyone began to see their own arrogance reflected in it. The chief engineer lowered his head. One of the female executives, visibly moved, wiped away a discreet tear. Miranda lifted her face. The light in her eyes wasn't triumph, it was peace. Her voice was soft, but each syllable carried the weight of truth. Knowledge doesn't wear a uniform, Mr. Dalton. And respect doesn't depend on a title. The words floated in the air, slow, deliberate, as if they had been written long before they were spoken. Dalton closed his eyes. The impact was silent but devastating. The sentence pierced through the room and hit something deep within him, something he had lost long ago, his humanity. The Japanese investor rose, breaking the stillness. He approached Miranda slowly, respectfully. He spoke again, and the translator repeated his words. She didn't just save the project. She gave science back what money had taken away, humility. Dalton lowered his head. The engineer nodded in agreement. The other executives began to stand, one by one, until the sound of timid applause began to fill the room. It was soft, but sincere, and soon it grew, spreading like light. Miranda flinched, startled. She tried to step back, but the applause continued. It was as if the universe itself was returning to her what life had once stolen. Tears rolled down her cheeks, quiet, shimmering like threads of light. It wasn't pride. It was relief. The kind of tears that come when the soul finally breathes after years of silence. Dalton looked at her, and his gaze no longer held superiority, only gratitude. For the first time, he truly saw her. The millionaire stood slowly, adjusting his jacket, as if searching for a new posture, not of authority, but of humility. He walked toward her, step by step, and stopped just a few feet away. The applause faded. He opened his mouth, but his voice broke. He took a breath and spoke with the honesty of a man swallowing his own pride. I owe you an apology. The simple sentence seemed to move the air itself. Miranda only nodded, offering a gentle smile, one that didn't judge, only understood. There was something almost maternal in that gesture, a silent lesson, free of resentment. The investors watched in stillness. The engineer stepped closer and placed a hand on Miranda's shoulder. You saved more than a project, he murmured. Dalton raised his eyes, weary, and added softly, almost to himself. She saved me. The sentence wasn't translated, it didn't need to be. The language of truth is universal. And in that instant, everyone understood that the real breakthrough in that room wasn't scientific, it was human. Miranda took a deep breath. Her trembling voice returned. "You don't owe me anything, Mr. Dalton. I only did what anyone would do, if they still believed in what's right." The simplicity of her response dismantled the last fragments of arrogance left in the room. It was the ultimate lesson, spoken without anger, without preaching, just truth. And that was the kind of strength money could never buy. Dalton lowered his head. The millionaire, so used to being applauded, now tasted the weight of humility. The Japanese investor looked at Miranda, moved, and spoke again. The translator smiled as he repeated the words. "We would like to invite you to join the scientific translation team." For a moment, Miranda didn't understand. The room buzzed with murmurs of approval. Dalton looked up, surprised. "You're serious?" The investor simply smiled. "Yes. And we believe Mr. Dalton should support that." All eyes turned to him. Dalton took a deep breath and nodded. "It would be an honor," he said, voice thick with emotion. Miranda covered her mouth, shocked. Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time, they were tears of freedom. The applause returned, louder, brighter. The sound filled the room like sunlight. Dalton stepped forward and extended his hand. She hesitated, then took it. It was brief, but sincere. And in that touch, there was something greater than an apology. There was redemption. The room that had once been a stage for humiliation had now become an altar of transformation. Miranda took a deep breath, looking around. The floor still gleamed, the same one she had cleaned every morning. But now, it looked different. As the sunlight poured through the glass walls, spreading golden reflections across the tearful faces, she realized that something inside her was shining too. And without knowing it, this would be the first of many mornings when the world would learn the lesson she had just taught. Months passed since the day truth silenced arrogance. Winter gave way to spring, and with it came a renewal no one expected. The Brighton Innovations building looked the same glass, the same marble, the same echoing corridors, but the atmosphere had changed. Where once there had been indifference, there was now respect. Where there had been fear, admiration bloomed. And at the center of it all stood Miranda Ramos, no longer the invisible cleaner, but the woman who, without realizing it, had transformed an entire company. The auditorium was packed. Warm lights, cameras, executives, translators, journalists. Dalton, the millionaire heir, stood at the front of the stage, holding a microphone. The same man who once shouted, "Shut up, you illiterate woman," now trembled, searching for the right words. Behind him, a giant screen displayed the company's new emblem, Brighton Global Science Program, an initiative for scientific inclusion born from Miranda's lesson. She watched from the back of the room, dressed in a simple suit, a golden badge on her chest, her hair neatly tied in a bun. Dalton cleared his throat. "A few months ago, I made a mistake," he began. The audience fell silent. "A mistake that cost me more than money. It cost me my decency. And it took a cleaner to teach me the true meaning of intelligence." The pause that followed was long, until soft applause began to spread, hesitant but sincere. Dalton looked to the back of the room and found her eyes. Miranda stood, hesitant, her heart pounding. The applause grew louder. She walked toward the stage slowly. Each step felt heavier than the last. The sound of clapping filled the hall, swelling like a wave of light. Dalton extended his hand, and she took it. The contact was brief, but enough to dissolve months of shame. He smiled, visibly moved, and said into the microphone, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the new coordinator of international translation and research at Brighton Innovations, Professor Miranda Ramos." The audience rose to their feet. The applause became thunderous. And for the first time in many years, Miranda cried, without shame of being seen. The lights turned golden, reflecting in the tears that ran down her face. The translator, moved, removed his headset and joined in the applause. Dalton stepped back, leaving her alone at the center of the stage. The microphone trembled slightly in her hands. She took a deep breath and spoke, her voice firm but filled with emotion. "I never wanted to prove anything to anyone. I just wanted the world to remember that a person's worth isn't measured by what they have, but by who they are. Knowledge is a secret God gives even to those who clean the floor, because wisdom doesn't choose status, it chooses hearts." The crowd stood again. Some cried. Others lowered their eyes, ashamed of what they saw in themselves. Dalton discreetly wiped away a tear. Miranda looked upward, as if offering thanks to something greater. "If there's one lesson I could leave," she continued, "it's this: never look down on those around you. Because life has a way of switching roles. And when it does, it's not revenge, it's justice." The silence that followed was sacred, until the applause returned, deeper this time, rising from a place where the human soul still breathes. On the right side of the stage, the chief engineer smiled proudly. The Japanese investor recorded the moment with his phone. The translator applauded standing. And Dalton just watched, with a quiet, genuine smile. The woman he once tried to silence was now speaking for everyone. And what made it even more powerful was that there was no arrogance in her voice, only light. It was victory without a trophy, forgiveness without a speech, glory without pride. When the event ended, Miranda stayed alone on stage for a moment. The crowd dispersed, the lights dimmed, and she looked down at the floor she had once scrubbed countless times. The polished wood reflected her face, tired but serene. She touched the golden badge on her chest and smiled. Not out of conquest, but redemption. Because she understood, the true victory isn't climbing higher, it's standing tall, even when the world tries to push you down. Outside, the New York sky was turning orange. The wind drifted through the lobby windows, brushing the curtains gently. Miranda walked toward the door, taking a deep breath. Each step felt lighter. The same hallway that once echoed humiliation now carried the sound of respect. Voices called her name in the distance. The past had finally become lesson. An imaginary camera would follow her as she walked out the main doors. The sunset cast a glow across her face, a mix of peace and strength. Outside, the city kept moving, indifferent as always. But inside her, time had stopped. And as the elevator doors closed, a quiet, final smile bloomed. She had won. Humiliation had become a lesson. And the secret, at last, had become light. If this story touched your heart, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support keeps stories like this alive, stories of those who were humiliated, but rose again with dignity. #FireStory, #Overcoming Stories, #Life Lessons.